Unlike much of the world, Brazil's beef remains affordable without government subsidies. In fact, the country is now the world's second largest producer and top exporter, with China leading the demand. So, what's behind the boom? I'm Johanna Bota, and to break it all down for us is StoneX Market Intelligence Analyst Larissa Alvarez. Welcome, Larissa. Great to have you with us. I want to start with beef prices, which are going through the roof in the US and in other parts of the world, like the UK, but not in South America, and more specifically, not in Brazil. Why is that?
Well, first of all, prices are dynamic. They naturally depend on supply and demand. And it's true that in Brazil, prices did increase last year, especially with the high cost of live cattle, but they rose much less than in other parts of the world. And here's what's the most important. In Brazil, beef hasn't turned into a luxury product as in many other countries where it's becoming something people eat less frequently because of price. But in Brazil, it's still affordable. And that says a lot about how deeply embedded it is in the culture. In South America, beef isn't just food, it's really part of the culture. People grow up eating it, it's in the family meals, weekend barbecues, it's part of daily life. And that tradition runs especially deep in countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay. And you can really see that in their production levels. Brazil, for example, has over 200 million head of cattle, which is nearly the same as its population. And Paraguay, for example, is even more striking. Only 6 million people, but about 14 million head of cattle. And that's more than two per person. So more than just about supply and demand, it's about cultural identity. And that strong local demand has helped build a very large, efficient production system. That's why beef remains widely available and affordable in the region, even while prices are skyrocketing in many other parts of the world.
So, like we mentioned earlier, Brazil is a leader in beef production and has also become the world's largest exporter of beef. But a lot of it is going to China. Why is that?
Exactly. Brazil today is the number one exporter of beef in the world, and the scale of that leadership is quite remarkable. In 2024, Brazil exported around 2.8 million tons of beef, which is nearly double what Australia, the second largest exporter, shipped. And Brazil beef reaches a wide range of global markets, 157 countries to be exact, including the United States, the European Union, and others. But there's a growing concentration in one key market, China, which alone represents more than 52% of our beef exports. And now that wasn't always the case. This shift began around 2019 after African swine fever devastated China's pork supply, a major staple protein for their population, and that created a sudden and significant demand for alternative proteins, and beef became a major focus. Brazil, with its scale and readiness, stepped in quickly. And since then, China has become a strategic partner, not just a buyer. And this growing relationship has actually shaped production back home. Many Brazilian producers nowadays have adapted to Chinese preferences and especially the timing of their purchases. For instance, the second half of the year has become crucial for exports because that's when Chinese importers uh, begin stocking up for Lunar New Year. And now, with greater reliance on intensive systems and planning tools, Brazilian beef producers are much more responsive to the seasonal demand cycles of key international markets. So it's not just a story about quantity, it's a story of evolving partnerships and a more sophisticated approach to global trade.
That's right. I think it's really interesting how that partnership developed. Now, the beef industry has seen a wave of technological breakthroughs. Has it become a precision science, would you say?
Yes, without a doubt. The beef industry in Brazil has gone through a complete transformation in recent decades. What used to be a very traditional and extensive system is now a sector that's deeply connected to science, data, and technology. A key area of progress has been genetic improvement. Breeding programs are much more precise today. They focus on selecting animals that grow faster, produce better meat, and adapt well to tropical conditions. And that means more productivity in less time with better use of natural resources. At the same time, there's been major innovation in pasture management. Farmers are no longer just relying on native grasses, they're planting improved forage varieties, rotating grazing areas, and even recovering degraded land so it can be used productively again. And this is not only helps improving cattle health, but also reduces pressures on new areas, which ties back to sustainability. And on the top of that, we now have did some digital tools becoming more common, from drones that monitor pasture quality to softwares that track cattle growth. So yes, beef now is a data driven fine tuned science.
Well, I actually want to delve a little bit deeper because my next question was going to be, would you say that the growth of the cattle industry comes at the expense of sustainability and biodiversity, or have other technological innovations like the ones you just mentioned help mitigate those risks? I mean, I was reading a little bit something about the EU deforestation law that passed. So can you explain that a bit more?
And that's a very common concern and a very valid one, because when we think of expanding cattle production, we worry about deforestation, biodiversity loss, and climate impact. But the truth is, cattle production in Brazil can continue growing while preserving biodiversity and native vegetation. And that's because of the technological shift we just talked about. With more intensive systems, farmers can produce more meat using less land, and with smarter pasture management, we're seeing the recovery of degraded areas, not the expansion into untouched ecosystem. And that is a key distinction. Sustainability today is no longer a side issue, it's central to the business model. And at StoneX Brazil, we recognize that. So last year, we set up a dedicated ESG team in Sao Paulo, and their mission is to help producers and clients align with environmental standards, implementing traceability systems, and preparing for certification. And this preparation is essential, especially as international regulations tighten. For example, as you well said, the European Union's anti deforestation law and the upcoming Mercosur and European Union agreement will both require more rigorous proof of sustainable practices. So we're already helping clients get ahead, making sure that when these rules come into effect, they'll be ready to meet the demands of more regulated premium markets. So it's a real shift in mindset from compliance to competitiveness. Being sustainable isn't just good for the planet, but it's becoming a gateway to opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Larissa, and thank you for watching. For more financial content like this, please like and subscribe to our channel.